There are moments in life where everything you thought you knew about people, about kindness, about worth, about who deserves to be saved, gets washed away in the rain. This is the story of a little girl trapped in the mud, a boy the world had already decided wasn't worth noticing, and a choice that would shatter the silence between two very different worlds. Her father owned half the state. His mother cleaned houses just to keep the lights on. But on that road, in that storm, in that moment, none of that mattered. What happened next didn't just change their lives, it exposed something about all of us. This is our Black Diary. Her name was Emma Caldwell, 12 years old, blonde hair, blue eyes, the kind of kid you'd see in a commercial for happiness. But Emma wasn't like other kids. She was born with a condition that left her legs weak, her balance unsteady. The doctors called it cerebral palsy, a mild form, they said, as if that made the stairs easier, as if the whispers didn't echo in her mind at night. Her father, Richard Caldwell, was one of the wealthiest men in North Carolina. Real estate, hotels, influence that reached into every corner of the state. He loved his daughter fiercely, maybe too fiercely, because in trying to protect her from a world that stared, he built walls around her instead. Private tutors, gated estates, drivers who never let her out of sight. Emma didn't go to school. She didn't have friends. She had everything money could buy and nothing it couldn't. She spent her days looking out windows, watching other children play in parks she'd never visit, watching a world she was part of but never belonged to. But on the afternoon of June 14th, 2018, all that protection couldn't stop what was coming. His name was Marcus Webb, 14 years old, dark skin, quiet eyes, the kind of kid people looked past without even realizing it. Marcus lived in the Crestwood Apartments, a place polite people called rough and everyone else just avoided. Building C, Unit 2F, third floor. The elevator had been broken for 6 months. His mother, Angela, worked 2 jobs. One cleaning offices downtown, starting at 5 in the morning, the other at a nursing home on weekends. She did this so Marcus could have something she never had, a chance, a future, a way out. Marcus never complained, not about the lights getting cut off, not about wearing the same 3 shirts to school, not about being invisible. Because that's what being poor and black in a town like Riverside taught you. You learned to make yourself small. You learned that the world didn't owe you anything, and it definitely didn't owe you kindness. But Marcus had something most people didn't. He noticed things. The way a stray dog limped near the gas station and no one stopped. The way an old man struggled with grocery bags and people just walked by. He noticed the world's cruelty, and he chose not to add to it. He went to Roosevelt Middle School, the kind of school where half the lockers didn't close right and the textbooks were older than the teachers. He was a good student, quiet, kept his head down, did his homework in the library after school because the apartment was too loud. And on that June afternoon, Marcus was walking home from the corner store when he heard something that would change everything. A scream, faint, desperate, coming from the old service road near the woods. Before we go any further, if this story is hitting you the way it's hitting me, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. It's free. It costs you nothing. But it helps us keep bringing you stories like this every single day. Stories about us, our pain, our resilience, our humanity. Because these stories need to be told. Now back to that scream. Emma's driver had taken a shortcut. His name was Gerald. He'd been taking that back road for months. Just gravel and mud, overgrown with weeds, forgotten by the county. It saved 15 minutes. 15 minutes that meant he could get to his second job on time. The rain had come fast that afternoon, violent, the kind that turns dirt into quicksand. And when the car hit that dip in the road, Gerald felt the wheels slip. The car didn't just get stuck, it sank, the right side tilting down into a ditch filled with rainwater and mud. Gerald panicked, slammed the brakes, threw it in reverse. The tires spun, mud sprayed everywhere. Emma was in the back seat, feeling the car tilt further. She'd always been afraid of tight spaces, of feeling helpless. She reached for the door handle. Gerald barked at her to stay inside, but Emma was scared. She pushed the door open and stepped out. Her legs, already weak, couldn't handle the uneven terrain. She stumbled, fell, and when she tried to get up, her feet wouldn't hold. The mud was thick, sticky, pulling her down like hands she couldn't see. It climbed up her ankles, her calves, and the more she struggled, the deeper she sank. Emma screamed, called for Gerald, called for anyone, but Gerald was on his phone, yelling about a tow truck. His back was to her. He didn't see her sinking deeper. No one did, except Marcus. He wasn't supposed to be there. Marcus had taken the long way home to avoid a group of boys who'd been hassling him at school. And when he heard that scream, every instinct told him to keep walking. Mind your business. Don't get involved. Nothing good comes from sticking your neck out, especially for people who wouldn't do the same for you. But Marcus stopped. He looked toward the sound, and he saw her. A white girl. Blonde. Probably rich, judging by the black sedan stuck in the mud. She was crying, sinking, reaching out for help that wasn't coming. For a moment, Marcus stood frozen. He thought about Trayvon Martin, about every news story where a black boy got blamed for being in the wrong place. He thought about what his mother always said, "Baby, the world doesn't give us the benefit of the doubt." But then he thought about something else. What if that was his little sister? What if no one stopped? So he ran. Marcus didn't announce himself. He didn't wait for permission. He just moved. He shouted that he had her. Emma looked up, startled. Her face was streaked with mud and tears. The driver finally turned around and his expression changed. Not relief, suspicion. Gerald yelled at Marcus to get back, stepping between him and Emma. Marcus froze. His hands went up automatically, a gesture of surrender he'd learned from watching his older cousins interact with police. He said he was trying to help her, his voice steady but small. Gerald insisted she didn't need his help, that he had it under control. But they both knew that was a lie. Marcus looked past the driver and locked eyes with Emma, and in that moment, something passed between them. She saw past his skin, past the assumptions, past the fear. She just saw someone who could help. Emma mouthed 2 words. Please. Help. That was all he needed. Marcus stepped around the driver, dropped to his knees in the mud, and reached for Emma's arms. He told her he was going to pull her out, but she had to trust him. His voice was gentle, calm. Emma nodded. Marcus wrapped his hands around her forearms, not rough, not frantic, steady, strong, and he pulled. The mud didn't want to let go. It clung to her legs like a living thing, but Marcus didn't stop. He planted his feet, gritted his teeth, and pulled again. Slowly, inch by inch, Emma came free. When she finally collapsed onto solid ground, she was shaking, sobbing. Marcus knelt beside her, breathing hard. He told her quietly that she was okay. She was okay now. He used his sleeve to wipe some of the mud from her face, a gesture so gentle, so human, that Emma looked at him like he was something miraculous. The driver stood there, silent. He didn't say thank you. Now, I need you to pause for a second, because what happens next is where this story gets complicated. If you're feeling something right now, anger, sadness, hope, leave a comment. Tell me what you're thinking. And if you believe stories like this matter, hit that like button. It tells YouTube this is worth sharing. It tells the algorithm that our voices, our stories, deserve to be heard. All right, let's keep going. Marcus stood up, muddy and exhausted. He expected something, a thank you, a nod, anything. Instead, Gerald pulled Emma away from him. The driver told him coldly that he could go now. Marcus blinked, started to speak, but Gerald cut him off. Emma looked back at Marcus, confused, grateful, but the driver turned her toward the car. Marcus didn't argue. He just left. Walked back to the road, hands shaking, heart pounding. Not because of the rescue, because of the way he'd been looked at. Like a threat, like a problem, even after saving her. When Marcus got home that night, he didn't tell his mother what happened. Angela was sleeping on the couch, exhausted from a double shift. He showered quietly, scrubbed the mud from his skin, watched it swirl down the drain. He stood there trying to make sense of what he felt. Not regret, but something hollow. The feeling of doing something good and still being made to feel like you'd done something wrong. But that's the thing about being black in America, isn't it? You can be the hero and still get treated like the villain. Richard Caldwell got the call 20 minutes later. His daughter was safe. The car was stuck. But when Richard arrived and saw Emma, covered in mud, trembling, still crying, he lost it. He demanded to know what happened. Gerald stammered, made excuses, said the road was bad, the rain, the mud. But Emma cut him off. She told her father that a boy saved her. Richard stopped. He asked what boy. Emma explained that a black boy had pulled her out when she was sinking, that he had helped her. Gerald shifted uncomfortably. Richard's jaw tightened. He asked where this boy was now. Gerald didn't answer. Richard looked at his daughter, then at the driver, and in that silence he understood. Someone saved his daughter's life, and they'd been sent away like they were nothing. Richard Caldwell was a lot of things. Ruthless, powerful, cold, but he wasn't a man who forgot debts. And this was a debt he couldn't ignore. More than that, it was a mirror. For the first time in a long time, Richard saw something about himself he didn't like. He saw that his employee looked at a child offering help and saw a threat. So he made some calls, found surveillance footage from a gas station nearby. Got a description, a name, Marcus Webb. And 3 days later, Richard showed up at Marcus's apartment. Angela Webb opened the door and froze. A white man in a tailored suit standing in the hallway of the Crestwood Apartments, looking completely out of place. She asked cautiously if she could help him. Richard said he was looking for Marcus Webb, her son. Angela's heart dropped. Every black mother knows that feeling, that fear. She asked what he did. Richard softened. He said Marcus did nothing wrong. He saved his daughter's life. Angela blinked, confused. Richard explained. The storm, the mud, Emma, everything. Angela called for Marcus. When Marcus came to the door, he looked at Richard and his stomach sank. He thought he was in trouble. Richard extended his hand. He said he came to say thank you. Marcus hesitated, then shook it. Marcus said quietly that Richard didn't have to do that he just couldn't leave her there. Richard nodded slowly. He said most people would have. And for the first time, Richard Caldwell saw something he'd never really looked at before. Not a statistic, not a stereotype. A kid, a good kid, who did the right thing and expected nothing in return. I want to stop here for a second, because if you're still with me, you're the kind of person who cares about these stories, the real ones, the ones that don't make the headlines but should. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, subscribe. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it helps us keep sharing stories from our Black Diary every single day. Now let's finish this. Richard Caldwell didn't just say thank you. He offered to pay for Marcus's education, private school, college fund, whatever he needed. Angela cried. Marcus stood there, speechless. It was everything they dreamed of. But Richard also said something else. He said he wanted Emma to meet Marcus again. Properly. He thought it would be good for her. And that's when Angela hesitated. Not because she didn't trust Richard, but because she knew the world Marcus was stepping into wasn't built for boys who looked like him. She'd seen it before. Black kids in white spaces, grateful, smiling, but always watched, always judged, always one mistake away from being reminded they didn't belong. Still, she didn't say no, because how could she? This was a chance, a door that never opened for people like them. So Marcus went. The first time Marcus visited the Caldwell estate, he felt like he was on another planet. Gates, gardens, a house so big it didn't even look real. Emma met him at the door. She smiled, shy, grateful. She thanked him for saving her. Marcus shrugged. He said it was okay, that anyone would have done it. Emma shook her head. She said no, they wouldn't have. And she was right. Over the next few months, Marcus and Emma became friends. Not because they had anything in common, but because they both knew what it felt like to be underestimated. Emma, because of her disability. Marcus, because of his skin. They bonded over being invisible to a world that only saw what it wanted to see. Emma told Marcus about what it was like to be stared at, to have people speak louder around her, like her legs didn't work, so her ears must not either, to be treated like she was broken. Marcus told Emma about what it was like to be feared, to walk into a store and have the clerk watch him, to exist in a body that people had already decided was dangerous. They understood each other in a way neither of them had expected. But even in that friendship, there were cracks. At school events, people stared. At dinners, Marcus felt the weight of every glance. Richard's friends smiled, but their smiles didn't reach their eyes. They asked where he was from, what his mother did, like they were building a file, deciding whether he was worthy of the space he occupied. And Marcus started to wonder, was he a friend, or was he a project? Was he a person, or was he a story Richard told at parties to prove he wasn't like the others? One day, Marcus asked Emma a question. They were sitting by the pool, and Emma was talking about her plans for the summer. A trip to Europe, France, and Italy. He interrupted her gently, asked if she thought her dad would have done all this if he was just some white kid from the suburbs. Emma stopped mid-sentence. She didn't answer right away, because she didn't know. And that silence, that said everything. Marcus wasn't angry. He was just tired. Tired of being the exception, tired of being the good one, tired of proving he deserved to be treated like a human being. But here's the thing. Marcus didn't regret saving Emma. Not for a second. Because that moment in the mud, that wasn't about race or money or who owed who. It was about seeing someone who needed help and choosing not to look away. And maybe that's the lesson. We don't do the right thing because the world will reward us. We do it because it's right, even when the world doesn't notice, even when it doesn't say thank you, even when we're still treated like we don't belong. The friendship between Marcus and Emma lasted through high school. They stayed in touch. Not as close as they'd been at first. Life pulled them in different directions, but connected. Marcus went to that private school Richard paid for. He excelled, top of his class, full scholarship to Duke University. He studied engineering, built a career, built a life. But he never forgot that day in the mud. Never forgot the way Gerald looked at him. Never forgot the feeling of being dismissed even after doing everything right. Those memories shaped him, made him careful, made him aware. Emma went to college too, studied social work, devoted herself to helping people with disabilities find employment, find dignity, find the life her father's money had given her, but most people never got. She never forgot Marcus either, never forgot that he saw her as someone worth saving. So what happened to Marcus and Emma? They stayed friends, for a while. But life pulled them in different directions, different worlds, different futures. Richard kept his promise. Marcus went to college, built a life, but he never forgot that day in the mud, and neither did Emma. Because some moments don't just change your life, they reveal who you are when no one's watching. Marcus didn't save Emma because he thought it would change his life. He saved her because it was the right thing to do. And maybe that's all any of us can do. Show up, help, even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when the world tells us we're not enough, because we are. We always have been. Marcus is 32 now. He's an engineer at a firm in Atlanta. He has a daughter of his own, 3 years old. He tells her stories sometimes about kindness, about doing the right thing, about being brave when it's easier to be scared. He doesn't tell her about the mud yet. She's too young. But one day he will. Emma is 30 now. She runs a nonprofit. She's helped hundreds of people with disabilities find work, find community, find dignity. She thinks about Marcus often, about what he taught her. Not just about kindness, but about privilege, about how the world treated him differently. This is Our Black Diary, where we tell the stories that don't make the headlines, but live in our hearts. If this story moved you, share it, comment. Let us know what it made you feel. Let us know if you've ever been in Marcus's position, doing the right thing and still being treated wrong. And if you believe in kindness that doesn't ask for permission, hit that like button. Subscribe, because every story we share is a reminder. We've always been here. We've always mattered. We've always been the ones showing up, helping, saving, building, creating, loving. Even when the world didn't notice, even when the world didn't say thank you. We're still here, still telling our stories, still making sure the world remembers that we matter, that our lives have value, that our choices shape history, that our humanity is not up for debate. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about these stories. Because when you listen, when you share, when you engage, you're saying these stories matter. You're saying we matter. And that means everything. We'll see you in the next one.